As an instructor, what's the things you look for a person to be promoted to at each belt from white, blue to purple? Um, I mean, it doesn't change much for me based upon belt level. It's kind of the same criteria. It's just that the criteria is more evolved. And I think what I grade people on changes depending on the person as well, right? Like, so I'm going to hold the standard for someone who's like 20 and is trying to become a serious competitor is going to be different than the standard I would hold to someone who's like 55, training 3 days a week, and they're not trying to become a serious competitor. But I mean, one of the most important things for me that I think is often lost is I really care a lot about like your ability to use the stuff you know in sparring, right? Some gyms will kind of promote people because they try, and of course that matters too. Like so, you know, if people put in the effort, that weighs a lot. But just because you put in effort, if you can't get to the point that you can actually use the techniques in sparring under resistance, then that is always going to make me hold the person back a bit, or so I always consider that. So they need to be using the stuff, the techniques in sparring under resistance or in a tournament if they don't use compete then in sparring. They need to do that. They need to be generally like a positive person, like trying to help others and stuff like that. I don't want to promote someone who's kind of being an asshole and like, you know, not being cool with everyone else in the gym. And like persistence and dedication and all those kind of things. But for sure, like ability over the craft is a main one. Um, Let's see. Where are you with Vice Guard? Any new techniques recorded? I've kind of been like not working Vice Guard as much recently just because I go through pockets of motivation of what I'm working on. So I've been doing a lot more guard passing recently, as well as working like my crab ride and bolo and stuff. So the Vice Guard at some point, probably in the next few months, I'm probably gonna start going really deep into it again. Right now, if I get people in it, it pretty much always works. So it's very powerful. But the big thing with Vice Guard is like your ability to set it up. So right now I'm putting a lot of effort in developing like the underhook De La Hiva, the Cauliflower ankle lock guard, more of my cross sleeve systems from De La Hiva, and then the Vice Guard is a setup from a lot of those things. So I'm going to get back to it probably in a few months, but right now it's kind of not my main focus. Um, what's your gi no gi ratio from Jack 741? 100% gi. That's my ratio. I like no gi. I think it's really interesting. It's just in modern competition, I feel like you kind of need to really focus on one thing. And especially training a lot of my time before in Sweden and stuff, I feel like I'm already, you know, a lot of people, the competitors I'll have to fight are already training with like, you know, 20 black belts on the mat at one time. So I feel like, you know, I just try to maximize everything I can on gi. You know, once I decide that I'm done with competition, I'm not going to compete much anymore, then I'll probably get into Nogi because I do find it very interesting. It's just not on my radar right now. Um, could you talk about your experiences with cauliflower ear? Yeah, you know, I never really got it for whatever reason. I wrestled in high school. I started to get it a little bit then. Often in high school, people wear headgear too. And I think my ears kind of like they got tougher, but they never got full cauliflower. And then because of the way I developed my game with a lot of open guard, you know, and like kind of keeping people away from my head, I think I never really developed it. So if you were to actually feel my ear, it actually feels very like solid, like cauliflower ear. It's just in like a normal form. So that was my experience. Krill Fed Stop. Hi, John. Just to straighten up the terminology, what's the difference between Keymaster and K Guard? Well, so I'm not sure how everyone's using the terminology of K guard right now. So my inability to answer that question clearly will probably be because my lack of understanding of what people are referring to as K guard. So I can define clearly for you what the Keymaster guard is or the Keymaster. And then if you have a decent understanding of what the K guard is, you could kind of weigh in on that. But I'll do it on the mat real quick. Okay, so yes, I don't really need for this one. So the let me. Sorry, I have to switch to the mat cam. Rookie mistake. Real webcam. Boom. Okay. So, so just go to like we'll do it on this side. Okay. So just be right leg up. Right leg up. Right leg up. Yeah. So the Keymaster hook is basically like when I have my leg past the body here, so I can have my foot on the hip. It often comes from like collar sleeve. So I can be playing with collar sleeve with like my foot on the hip like this, and I can push on the hip,
But sometimes what'll happen is the guy kind of leans with this leg a little bit more. Exactly. And my right foot will kind of hook on the thigh here like this. This is what's called a keymaster hook. Tommy refers to it as a keymaster hook, right? So this hook here, there's a lot you can do with it. I can pull to create off balance. I can switch back to pushing to the hip. It's just a common position you'll get into. Even if the guy kind of knee cuts into me here, like this, you can have this hook here. So that's a keymaster hook. But just like in the way the De La Hiva guard, it's a hook, but there's a lot of different grips you could have, right? So from the keymaster guard, I could have collar and sleeve. I could have collar, and if he's hiding this, I could grab the far pant leg and use this to off balance him and do attacks. I could switch to a cross sleeve, and I still have that keymaster hook. And this can turn into like matrices and stuff from there, right? So that's kind of what the keymaster hook is. So when we say keymaster guard, I feel like it's kind of similar to like how you would say De La Hiva guard, right? Like De La Hiva guard, I could have a De La Hiva hook, but I could have an ankle and cross sleeve, ankle and collar, ankle and far sleeve, double sleeve with a De La Hiva, collar sleeve with a De La Hiva hook, under hook with a De La Hiva hook. So when someone says they're in De La Hiva, it's not necessarily the best explanation for where you are. So when you say keymaster guard, to me, I'm just thinking, okay, you have that keymaster hook and some kind of combination of those grips, right? So usually it's the collar sleeve or the collar pant leg. The K guard, I think it's more of a no-gi terminology, but I think it's basically the same idea. It's kind of like you have a keymaster hook, you're grabbing the leg here, and this right leg, let's bring this way a little bit, and this right leg is like shielded here like this. And very quickly, it's going to turn into either like a matrix, or if it was no-gi, this can turn into like a calf slice or heel hook situation. Um, so that's kind of how I would distinguish it. But again, the K guard in like gi jiu-jitsu, I don't feel like it's a position you're going to stay in a long time. It's like you're going to go there, transition, and attack really quick, but you're not just going to stay there and chill in the same way you might in like collar sleeve or double sleeve or De La Hiva. And back to the up here. Cool. All right, great question. Uh, let's see. What advice can you give to a new brown belt jiu-jitsu lifer? Well, honestly, let me make sure it's on. Yeah. Okay, so my advice for a new brown belt. Honestly, I don't think it's any different than the advice I would give to a blue belt or purple belt or a brown belt or a black belt even. I guess maybe the only distinction is now you have to focus on leg locks a little bit more to make sure that you're prepared for those attacks if that was like something you were neglecting in your game before. But other than that, it's the same advice I would give anyone. Just focus on always developing your understanding. Try to always be learning new stuff even if you're a black belt, like if you don't pay attention to jujitsu for like a year or two, you're gonna be outdated, right? Like if I think back like 5 years ago, the things that people were doing in modern jujitsu, there was like very little, or Worm Guard just came out. The Matrix and stuff wasn't that big yet. It's always evolving. So you need to have a mindset of just always learning, never be satisfied, always go back and learn positions. The biggest one would just be I always think in terms of positions. So, like, how good is my collar sleeve? How good is my double sleeve? How good is my De La Hiva? How good is my Keymaster guard? And I'm always just trying to update those things. So, anytime I feel like if you give yourself an imaginary ranking on each of those positions, then whenever any spot that I see is kind of weak, I'm always trying to do specific training to level that up. And I just keep kind of strengthening my weaknesses. But honestly, it's not like there's some big change that happens when you become a brown belt. It's the same thing. Just keep learning, keep evolving your understanding. Even when you're like a black belt and you've been a black belt for 10 years, you're probably still going to be not satisfied with the level you're at, and you're always going to want to get better. The belts are just something that's there to show, to represent your progress. But in reality, even when you're a black belt, there's still just, you're never even going to scratch the surface of understanding everything in jiu-jitsu. Let's see. Gold trading. What about Flow Grappling announced Jimenez and Ryan match? I don't really know. Did something happen with that? Uh-huh. I think Nicky Ryan got hurt or something. I don't. I'm not really in the loop on that. James Williams. Hey John, I've been studying your mixing two powerful guards video and having a lot of success. So thanks. My question is this. This guard opens up to Mantis guard. Can you talk about options from here? Mixing two powerful guards. Oh, thanks, bud. Actually, can you reference in that video? I don't quite remember what I showed in that video. Mixing two powerful guards. What two guards was I mixing?
And then mantis guard. Do you know what mantis guard refers
Never
to?
heard of
Yeah, there's a lot of terminology like changes that people use. I'm trying to remember what mantis guard was. I think it's just like under. You just do this. Yeah, I think it's like underhook the Lahiva with the shin. Uh, yeah, elaborate a little bit more on that question. I'll try to get back to it. Um, how do you deal with guillotine attempts when you're in sit-up garb with no sleeve grip? Okay, that's a good question. So I most of the time, if I'm doing setup guard, I always have the sleeve grip. I set it up that way because there's just a lot of risk when you don't. It's not that you can't, but because if I'm coming up into the single leg position, I only like to do it when I'm very comfortable and safe in the position. So I'll show what I do there. So let me switch to the mat cam real quick. Okay, boom. All right. Turn this key on. Quick key stop. Okay. Let me move the mic. Okay. So if I'm going to sit up guard, I'm pretty much always doing it with the sleeve, right? So, the reason for that is when I set up, if I'm here, they can't knee cut this way. If they try to rush in, if you saw my video with like Lucas Lepre, he shows this, and I do this a ton as well. Anytime I'm here and I get this lapel and he tries to drive in or knee cut into me, I can bump him because he can't post this hand. I can grab the tricep, sorry about that,
no problem.
and then I can come up on top into the sweep or take the back. It's a very powerful system. As well as like when I'm here, the Kimura trap is hard, going for a guillotine is hard, everything's really hard, right? But let's just say that I sat up and then I don't have a sleeve for whatever reason. So that could be there's a couple like maybe he's hiding the sleeve. So sometimes you can grab this like low lapel like this and push and sit up here. The big thing I would say is try to keep your head up. Don't drop the head here because then you can try to drop it on the guillotine of some kind. So keep the head up, right? It's very hard to snap into that. And then the other thing is once I sit forward, step that way to stay here. Yeah, once I step forward, what I do is I try to go like chest deep here. I'm gonna hook and I'm gonna use the crook of my elbow here, like this. Sorry, we have black on black colors today. I'm gonna hook the crook of his elbow, and what I do is I keep my head up and I bring it to me like this. It buckles in his knee. It makes it very hard for him to have good control. And now I'll come forward and try to get this lapel grip. And again, I keep my head up here and I stay behind. It's very hard for him to dive for the guillotine here. And I always have my hand ready to deal with what's coming. And I'm going to look for that sleeve if I can. Also, I always keep this foot up on the hip because now if he tries to push this down, he's always giving me access to the sleeve. Now I can break it, come back. I can come up on the single leg. I can pull him down, come up on the single leg there. So I think just focus when you sit up, head up, and get your elbow deep behind the knee, lean back, and you're going to bend his leg, right? So one more time, I'll show that. What I'm doing here is once I go deep with this, and I have this here, I get chest tight, and I back up. That bends his knee and makes it easy to grab this, right? Then you have complete control. It's really easy to move and stand up and build from there. Okay. All right, good question. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Donald Hughes, how did you transition to full-time BJJ lifestyle? I'm a purple belt who has coached kids classes for a period of time, but didn't make enough money, although I enjoyed coaching immensely. Okay, yeah, that's a really good question on like how to segue into like a full-time jiu-jitsu lifestyle. Let me move the mic. Well, the first thing I would say, there's different layers to it, right? Like if you're not like an already a well-known black belt or something, seminar tours is going to be like is harder to get into first, right? So your first form of making money to become independent to me is private lessons. From the time I was a blue belt in my gym in St. Louis, Missouri, I was doing private lessons. And I think a lot of people, there's a quote from Naval Ravikant that I really like. He says, make money with your mind, not with your time. And a lot of times, if you put more thought into how you're trying to make income, you can find better ways to make income than what you're already doing. So, for example, maybe you're working like a 9 to 5 job, but if you're a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and you train in a smaller gym, especially like in the Midwest or somewhere where there's like if you're like a white belt, obviously you can't do privates yet. But once you get to the point that like you're one of the senior guys at the gym and you're trying to make your way to be able to make a living with doing this, trying to get private lessons is a big one, right? Because I mean, if you're like a purple belt or brown belt, you could probably charge $80, $100 an hour for private lessons. And if you're at a gym that's of relative size, you can definitely get those. So one thing I used to always do when I was coming up to get private lessons, I would always stay after class and just help people for free all the time. I just love helping people with jujitsu. So I would help them for free all the time, right? And then I slowly started to get a group of people. And when I would do private lessons, I would do group private lessons because people can work with each other. So what happens is you have, two guys and they want to work on spider guards. So you go, okay, I'm going to have you guys work together and then I'm going to show you the techniques and then you spar with each other and I coach you while you spar. Well, now every time after class, someone comes up and asks you a question on like how to do it or you help them and they ask another question, then you can go help them, give them free advice, and then you say, hey, if you're interested, on the weekends I do group private lessons with a few people, give me your number and I'll shoot you a text the next time I do one. Almost everyone is down for those. A lot of people want to do them, you just have to let them know you're willing to do it. But if you're willing to put the effort in into like letting people know what you do, you're helping them, you're not asking for anything for free, you're giving them advice and helping them. What'll happen is you'll start to get to the point where you have like 3 or 4 privates a week at like $100 an hour, $100 an hour, 60, $80 an hour, depending on your area and what belt you are. And I mean, if you're making, 4 privates a week at $60 an hour, that's $240 a week. That's $1,000 a month roughly, right? And if you live cheap, if you get a really cheap room and stuff, you can start to leverage your time off of having to work a 9 to 5. Then you're going to have more free time to study video, train jujitsu, think about what you want to do. But I think that's the first step. If you don't know what the long term plan is, because there's a lot of context to this question, like do you want to open a gym? Do you want to travel the world and do seminars? Do you want to be a black belt world champion? But the short term thing is try to leverage private lessons at your home gym to get financial independence. Then you can stop working your 9 to 5 and have more free time to develop in your skill. Invest in reading, invest in training jujitsu, invest in studying film, and I think that'll start setting you in the right path. If you have a more in depth situation, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram. Tell me it was you. We can take a phone call and I'll kind of talk you through your personal situation if you want. Cool. All right, let's see. Henry Gutierrez. Hey, John, I'm a white belt with 2 months. 2 months in, I've accepted the process of the art that it's continues work and progress. So, what would you recommend for me to have a few moves in my strategy? Thanks. Um, so the big thing is try not to think of having a strategy and try not to think in terms of individual techniques. Try to think in terms of positions and understanding. Strategies, like me and Espen have been talking about this a lot recently. When you compete, the best state to be in is really just clear of mind acting, right? I don't want, if I'm in my head in a tournament and I'm like, okay, if he does this, then I'm going to do, and I'm having to have a strategy, I get too attached to that. And that attachment hinders me from being able to take actions on the fly. Because I may be thinking, okay, I'm going to do this if he does this, and then he does something completely random I didn't expect. So strategies often mess you up. So what you want to do is spend the majority of your time just trying to understand positions. The more positions you understand, when things happen in a match, you'll just know what to do, right? It's like if you're taking a language test, if you have good understanding of the language, whatever question they throw at you, you're just going to be able to handle it well because you have a good understanding of the language, right? So that's what you want to focus on, just having good understanding of the language. Um, as far as techniques, if you focus on techniques like an armbar and a triangle and like a sweep, the hard part is that all techniques come from a position, right? So if you have an armbar or say a triangle, you have a triangle, you could set the triangle up from closed guard or you could set the triangle up from worm guard. The mechanics to set it up is going to be completely different. The finish will be the same, but the setup will be very different. So if you're trying to develop a beginning guard game, pick a guard like collar sleeve or double sleeve are usually the two I recommend in the beginning, and spend a lot of time trying to understand all the patterns from there. Because if you start chasing techniques like I want to do a hook sweep, well, you have to have a good system around it to be able to set it up, right? So if you go, I want to have a good armbar and a closed guard system around it, then that's doable, right? The difficulty with closed guard is it can be hard to get to sometimes when you're training. So that's where usually having at least 1 or 2 good open guards in the beginning, like collar sleeve or double sleeve, will help you a lot. All let's see here. Angelo Venizelos. Hey John, grip fights, do you need more physical power or technique? Always technique. I mean, I always think about it this way. I always look to an example of someone doing something, and if they can do it, then why not me, right? So if you see like Mikey Musumeci fighting, that 300-pound dude, do you remember his name?
Saif, that's his
Yeah,
last name.
Saif. Yeah, that huge dude from Europeans, right? Like Mikey beat him, right? And there's countless examples of small people beating big people in jiu-jitsu, okay? But if you see, and that's at a world-class black belt level, and then Mikey almost beat Muhammad Ali as well, right? Um, and he's a black belt world champion heavyweight, right? And Mikey was a rooster weight, light featherweight, okay? So if he can do that, then for sure you can find a way around it, right? So grip fighting, it depends on what you mean by grip fighting. If you mean grip fighting as like, okay, I grab his lapel and then he's going to try to break it and I'm going to try to hold it, then strength will make your grip harder to break. But it could be that I grab his lapel and then when he goes to break it, it gives me access to his sleeve. And now I hold the sleeve in such a way that it's hard to break and I can pull guard and like there's ways to build around it. So in general, just try to wipe that mindset that strength or is ever the issue. Always blame technique because that's something you can control. As soon as you start saying the guy's too tall, he's too strong, it starts to become impossible to improve because you're always going to blame those things, right? I always blame technique, even when obviously the guy is stronger and bigger than me, and it makes it harder. I still never take the answer of, oh well, I'm too small. I'm like, no, no, no. There's another way because it's too hard anytime you have that like lingering doubt in the back of your head. Good question. Okay. Krill Fedstoff said, "How do you stop people from spinning around to face you during the Matrix backtick?" I asked Espen on Insta, and he said to focus on the Matrix hook and to make sure to turn their knee. Can you elaborate, please? Sure. Yeah, there's a couple ways to go about that. Let me switch to the mat cam real quick, and then we'll talk about it. Brio webcam. Bam. All right. Yes.
Trying to take more time to breathe between questions. All right. So be on this side. Okay. So the first thing when you're going for the matrix, and there's a lot of different ways you can set it up. My favorite, I think it depends on the systems you already play. Is I like doing it from this cross guard just because I'm here so often from the other games I play. But this could easily happen from like X guard. Like I could be an X guard like this, and then like he kind of steps back a little over here like this. This is a really common situation. It's a very simple way to get here. So one big thing I'm always looking for, however I get in this position, I have an underhook and I grab some material near their calf like this, is the foot angle. If his foot is angled outward, it's going to be a very difficult matrix, okay? But I can't do it because I'm not going to be able to buckle his knee inward. He's going to turn his knee out a little bit here. You see it? I can't. He's going to circle this way. So I'm always looking for the foot angle, right? And that's not something I can force. I have to take what he gives me. So if I'm here, like say I was playing cross sleeve, I go in here and I underhook here, my shoulder is kind of already resting on his foot, so it's hard for him to even turn his foot out in the first place. Here I'm threatening an omoplata and stuff like this. Here it's going to be very easy for me to go for, okay? If his foot was turned out, right, I'm not going to go for it. I might switch in with the butterfly hook and come underneath the X. This is often where from here I'll start switching up to attack the ankle lock because counterly, the ankle lock works really good when his foot is turned out. Now I can get strong rotation and take him down and crack here, but I won't go into that too much right now. Okay, so let's say his foot is rotated in and I'm about to throw it. I'm going to throw it, and there's two things I'm going to do. I like to jump my hip up. This is when they posture. It's a little bit different when they're lower. But I like to jump my hip up and see this left leg, how I clip his far hip. That makes it harder for him to step forward. See, step forward? See, it keeps me attached. It gives counter pressure. So it's not just this, it's that, right? See, that makes catching the hip here, right, really easy, right? And he doesn't have normal V pants on, so I'm not going to grab that. So I would grab the belt or the pant line here, right? So once I have the pant line, right, now it's easy from here to shrimp out like this, and I take the underhook out, and I come around here, and now I can start pulling it down, and then go in for the back take from there, okay? So I would say, number one, I don't know the position you're setting it up from, But number one is pay attention to the angle of their foot, making sure it's inward. If it's outward, it's going to be very difficult in the first place. Try to go to X guard and do something else. If you catch it with the foot pointed inward, then throw the matrix hook over and then use the far leg to clip that hip. So go up. I'll show it from the omoplata this time. This is a great setup if you're doing it from an omoplata or a triangle. Is once I get the omoplata, I'm going to underhook the leg, again, focusing on trying to get over that foot. And now what happens is as he postures up, like this, I'm going to drop from a deep omoplata to shallow. See how my heel is here? I clip him forward a little bit, and then I clip the far hip here. Now I got the hip. It's hard for him to follow. Right? Boom. Come around, and now I can pull and take the back from there. Cool.
All right. Let's see. All right, we're back here. Or actually, let's put that there. All right, you guys still hear me good? All right, let's see. Sorry if I miss anyone's question. I'm trying to go through everyone. It's just difficult to get to everyone. Philippe Petrick said, um, actually, let me scroll up a little bit to make sure I didn't miss anyone. How do you stop people from spinning on the matrix? James Williams. Let me look at James. Mixing video has a cross sleeve grip from Lasso when the person blocks off the space between the knee, elbow. Hey, James, can you message me on Instagram that question and just tell me you're the guy from the live stream and I'll take it in there because it's hard for me to understand it right now. And it's easier to just keep going. So just go ahead and shoot me a message on Instagram and I'll solve it there for you, bud. Let's see. Do you offer Zoom privates or match analysis sessions where people can ask you questions? Yeah, I do stuff like that. Shoot me a message on Instagram and we can discuss it there. Um, I really like doing, this is from Philippe Petrick. I really like doing triangles. What guard would you recommend me that has a lot of triangle choke options? I'm a white belt, almost blue belt, and I'm trying to find my game. Thanks, John. Double sleeve and collar sleeve and close guard. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Double sleeve, that fast hip up triangle is really, really good. Collar sleeve, just like the classic, like lift off the hip, put the foot on the hip, lift off the hip, and throw the top leg over. Tommy does that all the time, is really good. So I'd say collar sleeve and double sleeve and close guard if you can get close guard. Those three for sure. And then as far as building a game, I always say this, but don't focus on building a game as much as just developing base understanding and common positions. Learn double sleeve, collar sleeve, De La Hiva. Those are the three foundations I always suggest. All right. Andreas Contreras. Hi, John. What are your thoughts in a butterfly, lazy butterfly system like Wardzinski in lighter divisions? Do you think it would work out? Any suggestions? How would you combine it with other guards? The butterfly guard is awesome. Like Wardzinski, I think, is one of the most innovative people in the last like 5 to 10 years, honestly, just because he was able to take some of that old school butterfly, which I used to use a lot and I really love it. And he was able to find a lot of modern ways of setting it up. But I don't know if that's just an expression. They call it the lazy butterfly. I wouldn't say it's lazy because it's actually very difficult to set up. I would say that the reason Wardzinski can use it so well is that he has a lot of good setups from like sleeve, like collar sleeve, cross sleeve. He uses those positions to set up the position. So I think if you don't have a reasonable open guard control, it might be kind of difficult for you to set it up. But I think, of course, it could work in the lightweight division. I think that would work great in the lightweight division as long as you have the good setups. Um, Evan McLaren says, haven't studied the matrix in depth yet, but when I see openings and go for it, my opponent just smashes me. May have already been addressed in the stream. Actually, we just kind of addressed the matrix. So if you go back a little bit, I think you'll probably see it. Whoa, just jump down. Hey, this is from Carlos Rodriguez. Hey, John, how are you? What is your opinion of single leg X guard versus 50-50 guard? Versatility, learning difficulty, think Connor D'Angelo style versus Nick Sal's Daniel Myra style. Realistically, I mean, I think from complexity perspective, single leg X is probably the simpler one for sure. Like with the single leg X, you have a few basic sweeps you can do there, and then you come up in like the open guard trying to pass. If you do the 50-50, you sweep, you're going to come up in 50-50, and now you have to try to pass the 50-50. Granted, if you're really good at passing 50-50, that's cool too, because now you have them in a position they don't know what to do with. Also, there's a lot of back setups and ankle locks you can do from there. So I would say from a simplicity perspective, single leg X is simpler, but there's a lot of cool things you can do at 50-50 as well. In the end, though, it would be best to have both. I think if you see guys who are really good, they use both. Like they get the leg on both sides. They do single leg X. They do like Mikey does that kind of modified X hook with the right leg over, almost like he's leg dragging himself, and uses that to set up ankle locks. So I think in the end, having it all mixed together is probably the best way to go. Um, let's see. Matthew, do you have any recommendations for beginners to learn BJJ terminology and exercises at home? Um, for learning terminology, I can't think of like a good like glossary or index for all the main terminology. That'd be a really good thing for someone to make. Maybe I'll try to make a video where I just like make a list of like 50 keywords I think everyone should know, just, for references or something. But yeah, honestly, I can't think of like a really good one-stop shop. I mean, maybe you go to Flow Grappling and just read articles, and then just anytime you see something you don't know, just Google it. What I'm going to try to do, like in the match breakdown I just did recently, um, I'm going to start doing more match breakdowns, like the one I did. I might, instead of doing full matches, I might just grab like a 2 minute clip that I think is very interesting in the match. But what I'm going to start doing is in the breakdown, I'm going to like chop in sections where I'm back in the gym on the mat. So like if I'm showing like here, he's doing the Kyotera ankle lock, and just to give reference, I'll cut to a clip of me in the gym demonstrating the Kyotera ankle lock and giving kind of a context. So I want to kind of set it up so that it's like a hybrid between on the mat instruction and actually demoing or the actual representation of what's going on in the tournament as well. Cool. Good question. Um, let's see. Man, lots of questions coming in. Any drill recommendations with a partner who doesn't do BJJ? Hmm. Man, that's really tough. I mean, I honestly, I don't think you get much out of drilling unless they give you some kind of a resistance. So I feel like the best way to utilize someone who doesn't know BJJ, if you can work with them consistently, is to just teach them the basics of one position and try to spend a little bit of time. You're going to have to invest in time helping them so that they can help you. That's what I've always had to do in my career when I'm trying to develop with someone that doesn't have a lot of BJJ experience, is you have to put the groundwork in. But you don't have to make them good everywhere. Like someone can know nothing about, how to finish someone from mount or whatever, but you can literally grab someone who has no idea anything about jujitsu and put them in underhook de la Hiva and tell them to like put the foot here and show them exactly how to hold it and just be like, be annoying, right? And just hold on tight. And then you can slowly work with them over time to allow them to at least give you reasonable responses so you can understand how the position functions. That's probably what I would do. So it's not that you're going to be speed drilling on them, but just like pick one position and go deep on it with them. And then after a day or two, they'll be able to at least give you some realistic responses, I think. All right. Uh, Brian Jacobs, hoping for a few suggestions around using the lasso guard to transition to a back take. Yeah, I can't really think of a direct lasso to back take. I mean, yeah, I'll give you a couple like hypothetical situations, but I think they're more transitioning guard, right? So, like, say we're here, I would say one could be like if I'm here like this, and especially good at both knees. If he's on both knees, you could unlasso and hit an arm drag and come up for the back. You could potentially, from a lasso, switch to a cross sleeve, unlasso, and then go for a deep lace to go for the back, like with a deep lace back take from De La Hiva. The one Espen showed in the last video I did with Espen, turn this way like you're like that, but turn. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, left like that. Yeah, like you could do this one here where I'm playing like a shallow lasso, and then they trap this leg, so I put the reverse De La Hiva hook in, and you could come through here and then go for the back from there.
I think those three. But again, I wouldn't say those are directly back takes from the lasso. They're more transitions. The lasso reverse de Oliva is kind of somewhere in between. But as far as like a direct lasso, I can't really think of a clear back take from there.
All right, it's a good live stream. Almost 80 people. Let's see here. Benjamin G. For some reason, my daily Hiva hook is just useless. Like it provides me no control at all. I was told I was too tall to have a good daily Hiva, but I'm skeptical. Yeah, you should be. That's like a ridiculous statement. Any advice on controlling the hook better? 100%. I can't see what's going on in the match right now because I don't have context, but I have a pretty strong idea of what's happening. So I'm going to cut to the mat cam and talk about the daily Hiva hook being weak versus strong. All right.
Here we go. Can't find this one. All right. Okay, so let's look at the daily Hiva hook here. So right leg forward. All right. So I would say my guesstimate, if you're playing daily Hiva holding the ankle, usually the main reason the person can't get a good daily Hiva hook is because the person's leg is straight. And you're not doing anything wrong, it's just not possible, okay? For a good daily Hiva hook to happen, bend your legs. So just kind of like do kind of a squat, right? This is going to be a very strong daily Hiva hook, right? Okay, so you can probably see where my foot is, right? So let's turn this way just so we can see. Right. So I'm laying my right leg down so you can see. This is a very strong daily Hiva hook. It's even on his hip, right? That's the strongest, right? So just for context, there's a deep daily Hiva hook, whereas I go across to the far side. That you don't use that often. It's like a quick attack you do. You don't stay there, right? But if I'm trying to actually stay somewhere, then I want it more like this is the best. Like on the hip, I can knock him backwards. You have so much control here, okay? So back to the center a little bit. So then this one. Yeah, so then a weaker version would be more like instead of it being up on the hip, it's like I kind of catch near his knee, like almost like here. This is still pretty good, but stretch your leg just a little bit more straight. The more straight his leg is, the weaker the hook is. Now there's nothing. It's flat straight, right? There's absolutely nothing here. And that's not you're doing anything wrong. It's just impossible to do a daily Hiva hook there, right? So what you want to focus on is if I'm playing daily Hiva, I'm usually holding the pants like this, is if his leg is relatively straight, I'm doing strong knee pressure into his knee, and I hold the pants and I drive my elbow in the floor, and it buckles his knee. See, that's uncomfortable. If I have the heel, I can really drive, and it's almost like a knee bar, right? That's going to create discomfort, and for him to do anything, he's going to come into me a little bit. You see, he already pressured his knee into my knee. Now this hook sets really strong, and now I can start taking him over for bare bolos or whatever. So the big thing is looking for that. If I was doing collar sleeve, for example, okay, then if his leg is straight, it's easier to pull this open for omoplatas and triangle chokes, okay? Because his leg is straight. He has to protect this elbow knee space to stop the omoplata and triangle. So the more I'm threatening this, you see I pull really quick on that, the more I'm threatening this, he's going to box his elbow in really tight to defend that. Well, when he does that, it sets the hook tight. Now the hook's tight. Now I can start pulling the collar and start off balancing him and doing stuff. But if he pops his leg straight here, boom, I switch back to the knee. Now maybe I go here, see? And now I pressure, he drives in, boom, I got the cross sleeve. And see, I can start lifting him and everything, right? So that's probably why, I'm just guessing, that's probably why it's happening. A lot of people, they're thinking about like the technique they want to do, but you can't do what you want to do. You got to take what they're giving you, not what you want. So to me, almost certainly that's your issue. It's that you're going for the hook at the wrong time. The only other possible thing is if the guy's just pushing your hook off. So if I'm playing daily Hiva and he's pushing it down, again, I can't do anything about that. I can't put this in, right? So then I might break this grip and then try to go back to it. Or if I'm here and he tries to push it down, I just keep strong knee pressure. Now it's hard to push that down because my hip is centered. So then he gets annoyed, pushes, he drives to the knee. Now I got the hook in. And you see how I can like lift it and move him around really easy because I get that hook so deep. And I get it deep by creating some form of strong knee pressure or threatening the omoplata and triangle.
Excellent question. All right. That was an excellent question. All right. Evan McLaren, how's your Swedish? Next question. It's as good as my Norwegian. uh, okay, I'm trying to go back up. Sorry, guys. I would love to get to all these questions. I think it's going to be tough. Let's see. Evan McLaren, BJJ Scout has an excellent breakdown of Wardzinski butterfly guard, focusing on specifically how he's able to adapt it, address modern standing passers. Yeah, that's worth checking out for sure. If you haven't seen Wardzinski, check some of those overview videos out because it'll give you good context, kind of just like on the whole game. And if you can't train right now because you're in lockdown, you just have nothing you can do. I think watching a lot of overview videos is actually a really good idea because at least, even if it doesn't give you all the exact ways to do the technique, you at least have kind of a general, more broad understanding of what's going on. And that's what you want to get to. You want to be able to just watch a match and kind of see what's going on and kind of have, and it's going to help your overall understanding. Okay. Um, John Park says, when you do the backward sweep from De La Hiva, sleeve, leg pass, body, and they drop to one knee to catch their balance with the right hand posting on the ground, what attack do you like to follow up with? Uh, so I'm thinking what you're saying is you're like in double sleeve leg pass body, and they drop to one knee to catch their balance with their right hand posting on the ground. Well, you shouldn't be letting them post their right hand on the ground. You should be tucking it, right? I'll just switch to the mat cam real quick to answer this one. Boom. Yeah, I think what you're saying
is like we're here, right? And I'm doing this one, and then I backward sweep. I want to make sure I tuck this, so if I go here, he's gonna post, right? So when I tuck it, he can't post, and then he falls into my floor. Right?
Boom. Okay. All right. Uh, uh, are there any pure no-gi BJJ instructionals that cover all the basics? I'm not really sure, but I know Lachlan Giles stuff is really good for no-gi, I've heard, so maybe check him out. How is training in Norway like? Has your game changed a lot after training with Tommy and Espen? Man, it's amazing. It's like the perfect environment for me because I'm very big on like freedom in training. I don't like to go into gyms where it's like, all right, guys, line up, and then it's like a very strict kind of thing. They're very like open-minded here. So for more or less the morning sessions, like where the people who really want to compete train, it's open. So we come in, we have coffee for like 30, 40 minutes, shoot the shit, talk, get into a good mood, and then people make of the day what they want to do, right? So like some days me and Espen come in and we just do specific sparring for like 2 hours in one position, troubleshooting problems. Some days we do resistance drilling, we just trade sweep and pass and try to open our game a bit. Some days me, Tommy, and Espen will just try to kill each other doing hard rounds for like 30 minutes or something. And it just kind of like oscillates day to day. I would say the biggest thing is just like when you're training with other really high level people, everyone has been in their own like kind of chamber of development in certain positions over a long period of time, and how much you can improve fast by exchanging is like insane. Because like if I'm like the Matrix was largely like developed and innovated by Tommy and Espen. So like when I'm in the gym and I'm trying to figure out my matrix and develop it, anytime I have an issue or if, especially working the crowd, I can just go over to Espen or Tommy like, hey, what would you do here? Boom, and then they give an answer, right? So that's huge. As well as just getting exposed to different styles because you can prepare as much as you want and try to understand everything, but sometimes if you have a hole in your game you don't know about, you have to roll with someone to have that exposed. So I think the big thing with all three of us is that we all have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences too in the things that we do. Like Tommy's passing is more like double under, over under pressure stuff. Espen is a little more like leg drag, a little more like kind of Guy Mendez style knee cut. Mine is a bit more Toriando and like low style knee cut. And then together we're all getting exposed to so many different positions that are new to us. So that's been the best part, I think. As well as just the atmosphere. It's such a like friendly group and everyone's kind of hanging out together. And for me, I think just when you really like everyone you're training with and you like the environment in, that's when you excel, right? Um, Thanks for the replies. No problem, bud. Really happy to help. Any hand fighting strategies from the back to break through defensive opponents to get collars? Actually, I'm probably not the best person to ask on that. Like if they get usually in tournament, it's so different in tournament because in the gym people will get really defensive. In tournament, if you have their back, you're usually up on points by like four. I can take my time. The pressure is on them because they're down by points. So they usually expose the choke. But honestly, I don't have anything off the top of my head that's like really useful in that spot. How long you're gonna stay at Wolfing? My plan right now is to come back at the end of the month. But I know Sweden just closed its borders. If you unless you have a COVID test and then there's stuff going on, so I just got to see what happens with the border stuff right now. But for right now, I'm just training and seeing what happens day to day. Okay, let's see here. Um, African boy said, "Can you do more about Keymaster?" Hey, buddy, we did some in the beginning. Go back and check that out. And then maybe I'll do it on the next one as well. I'm gonna do a different question just because we covered a bit of Keymaster earlier. Um, Lucio Marconi. Hi, Thomas. Some advices for daily HEVA retention. I have a tournament in 1 month and I need some tips. Thanks. No problem, buddy. Lucio, I'm not sure. We just talked a lot about maintaining the daily HEVA with the knee pressure. Maybe one other thing I can add in with that. Let me pop this on here real quick.
So for daily HEVA retention, I just talked a lot about the importance of having knee pressure, and then if they pressure in with the knee, using a strong daily HEVA hook. The second thing I would say is if you want to be able to use daily HEVA as kind of a resting position that you can control and chill from, is focus on this far sleeve a lot. Because if you can get this far sleeve, and for this guy to really do almost anything, he needs to grab this leg. So he's got to trap it to knee cut or leg drag it or push it. He's got to grab it. So often I have this leg back, and when he grabs, I break, and now what I do is I put my leg past the body and I angle my knee slightly in like this here, because it makes it harder for him to grip. And it's kind of like a knee shield. And then I have good knee pressure or a daily HEVA hook, depending on the angle of his leg. And then I go palm up, right? This is a really hard position for your opponent to get out of. Like I can just kind of chill here. I can rest, think about what I want to do. I can go to the low guard and go underneath. Can push and go to setup guard. Can go to daily HEVA X. I can just chill here. At any point, I can switch up and start playing collar sleeve and attacking from here. It's just a great transitional control. You can start doing deep lasso from here. All sorts of things start opening up, right? So I would say if you don't really have a solid idea in your daily HEVA, strong knee pressure first. If they pressure into your knee, good hook. And always watch this, like don't let him trap it. Keep it out like this. Have your hand fighting like this. So when he grabs it, I get the grip, I break, leg past body, angle the shield in. I don't put the foot on the hip unless I'm about to do something, right? Because it's hard. When I go here, he can actually pull his arm back now to get a grip because the hip there. But when I go past the body, it's so far for him to reach. See, try grab. It's very difficult for him to reach it, right? And now when I'm ready, I can decide what I want to do.
Let's see. Um, Samson Halu, having access to mini Bolo specialists, who do you think people, or how do you think people vary? I think it was worded weird. I'm just going to read it. Why do you think people vary how they use the outside leg? Example, Espen looks like he doesn't push shin across body. Margot uses her. Ah, okay. I got you. Well, I guess the big Bolo people I've worked with so far are Espen, um, uh, Tommy. He doesn't use it so much. He's more just doing like the crab ride and straight to the hip and stuff. And maybe he has some opinions on it, but I haven't really worked with it on him yet. So it's like Espen, Margot, and then Daniel and Nick. I guess what I would say is that Espen is like really focused on trying to get to the crab ride and finishing from there because he really likes the idea that it's way less risky. And I kind of feel the same. It's way less risky for someone who's really good at bolos to try to re-bolo you or something, right? So when you get to that crab ride, it's very powerful. Nick and Daniel, they really go like leg across body and kind of get over top of the thigh. I really like that too. So I find myself using kind of a hybrid, like where I try kind of the Nick and Daniel style, shin over thigh bolo first. I just really love the way that feels. It works good with my body, and I can usually get a good lift for the back take. And then if that one fails, then I try to transition to the crab ride, right? Another one reason I think that Espen likes to use kind of the leg out more is he pushes their chest back a lot, and that makes it easier to reach the hip. Sometimes when you try to go for the hip, they're pushing your hand away. So he pushes their chest back, grabs the hip, and then inverts, and then he figures it out after that. So there's a lot of versatility in that as well. Margot often likes, I mean, she'll do the classic Bolo as well, but she also likes to thread to that like modified X position and do what she calls the Zen Bolo, where you kind of grab the pant, pull it across, and it turns into kind of like a crab ride variation. But they're all really good and have their own things. Um, okay. Oh man, I'm not gonna get to all these questions. Sorry guys, I'm like way behind in questions I see now. Just trying to catch up here. Oh man. Well, I'm happy there's so many people. That was an excellent, so much gold in there. Yeah, and I'll post this later as well, guys, and I'll cut some of the really good sections so that they're easy to reference in like separate videos as well. Um, Sorry if I skip over some of your guys' questions. I'm doing my best to keep track of everything. Uh, let's see here. Drew Champlin, very jealous of your slim fitting general gi. Mine is baggy as fuck, being a short dude. Yeah, I love the Vital Gear gi is certainly a good fit. I really like it. Regarding what you said earlier about privates, do you think blue belts can teach privates, or do they not even have enough experience? I think blue belts can teach privates for sure. I mean, you just have it's all about like explaining and expectations, right? Like a blue belt obviously is not the same thing as a black belt, right? But like I would take privates with a blue belt if they had a position that I really thought was good that I didn't know. Like when Connor DeAngelis was a blue belt winning like blue belt pans and worlds, and obviously you're probably referring more to like a recreational gym blue belt. I get that, but just for context, like I would take a private with Connor DeAngelis to understand what he's doing in his De La Hiva guard, right? So belts are just like it's just something people use, but it's not. It doesn't really define how good a person is, right? Someone can be a world class level black belt skill and be a blue belt. So if you're a blue belt in the gym, even if you're just like recreational training, if you have a good closed guard and you're able to submit people, you can still help people by showing them that, of course, right? I mean, maybe you've been training 2 years, someone else is brand new. I think it's totally fine to do private lessons. You just have to give context that, like, hey, this is what I do right now. It works good for me. I have success with it. I'm not saying that it won't change and it can't be better, but if you use this, I can help you get to where I'm at, and then it'll work good for you at some point. That's completely reasonable. And I think everyone who's been training for over a year or two has a lot of value to give to someone who's brand new, even if it's just learning how to shrimp properly or anything like that. So don't let that limit you that because you're a blue belt you can't do privates. You totally can, right? Just give context. Um, what about when he doesn't post but drops to a knee to catch the base? I'm sorry, John. I don't remember uh, the question before I was answering for that one. I'm gonna try to take some new questions from people that I haven't answered yet, just to try to get to everyone. Um, let's see here. Jesper, what positions have you developed when training with Espen and Tommy? Any mind-blowing moments? Okay, great question, Jesper. A lot. Yeah. Yeah, what is some of the biggest stuff that, I mean, there's like 30. Um, Let me think of which one I want to share right now that's been like the biggest one recently. Okay, I'll just show a couple off the top of my head that I think we came up with recently that have been pretty bomb. All right. Um, go down so when doing passing, one has been kind of focusing on trying to get chest over chest when I'm doing my guard passing before, like, so a lot of people, they're trying to Toriando, they're kind of back a bit and they're trying to clear the legs and then get in. The issue is that I have so much space. When I finish any pass, in the end, I got to be chest over chest on top of his chest to finish, right? So even if I clear his legs here, there's so much room to cover. So what I've been doing a lot of now is we're here and we work on this a lot where I kind of like, it's almost like I'm looking over a well. I kind of get really close like this and I catch here and then I really quick pop and I close the distance a lot faster, right? The key is that, if I step too close with my foot, he might grab my ankle and go to De La Hiva, which isn't the worst thing if you're good at passing De La Hiva, right? But what I do is like if the guy's here like this, I try to get close. And now even if I do like a one arm throw, I cover the distance so fast. So trying to get
like legs back, kind of lean over, and then make your decisions from here. When I'm this close, it's even easier to stack too. Like if I'm back here and I try to stack and he drops his head, it's hard, right? But when I'm here and he starts getting his feet high trying to defend, now I can stack really easy, right? I can throw by and drop really quick. So that was a big one. Another one too is like in De La Hiva, when we're here, is like instead of grabbing at the cuff, grabbing horizontally like this a little bit more, it actually makes it way easier to push this behind and drop to do this De La Hiva side smash. For whatever reason, when you're on the cuff here, you don't have the same control. So holding this here, I can control, throw by, drop, and do a lot of passes there.
I would say that's like one of like 70. So it's honestly, it's like so many every day. It's like hard to even keep track of at this point. All right. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. Carlos Rodriguez, why did you choose to focus in gi instead of no gi? I don't know. My original gym, that's just what I did when I came up a lot. There was a period where I competed in no gi a lot as well, but I just kind of fell in love with the gi. There's so many variations, so many grips, it's just like a lot more things to play with, you know. Is like obviously no gi is extremely technical as well, but I guess like there's so many variables in the gi with all the different grips. It just has so many things to mess around with. It's just really fun. Um, Samson Halu, love your channel. We don't deserve you. Thanks, bud. Really appreciate it. Sorry if this was asked already. Are you going to put out a Vice Guard instructional? Actually, I have a Vice Guard instructional on Grappler's Guide. So if you don't have Grappler's Guide, it's a one-time fee, lifetime membership, but they have like tons and tons of content on there. So if you join, you can use my coupon code. It's J Thomas. I think it's listed on my Instagram. All right, let's see here. What do you do when people go very low when you play De La Hiva? Um, do you already have the De La Hiva hook in, or you're saying like you want to play De La Hiva, but they're approaching you and they're very low to the ground? That question was from Vlad Dratu. Okay. Ezra Paul said, I want to succeed at the big tournaments like Worlds and Pans, but I train at smallish gym and most of the people aren't like-minded. Any advice? Yeah, I have a lot of advice for that. Well, the first thing, the number one first thing is even if you train at a smaller gym, I think you can totally become super successful training a smaller gym. I started at a small gym. I won the Pan Ams at Blue Belt when I was training a small gym. Tommy Espen trained at a small gym. I think the most important thing in the very beginning is you need to put the effort in to find one or two training partners that you can work with on the side. If you just go to classes and train, that's not going to be enough. Like you need to have someone that you can be working with stuff. There's so much access to online video content now. You can download instructionals, you can watch all the competitions on Flow Grappling or on YouTube. There's tons of places to get new information. What you need is someone to play around with things and test things, okay? So be doing a lot of specific sparring in these positions and just you can't force getting to the level you want, but if you focus on understanding first, eventually you're going to get to the point that you understand all this stuff well. So I think the main issue when you're at a smaller gym is you don't have the diversity of partners that other people have, right? So if you're training at like Atos HQ, there's like, you know, 200 people training there, or 100 people in one class. You know, you may have someone who does every type of guard there, but if you're training at a smaller gym, there may be no one at your gym that plays worm guard. So the only way you can be prepared in a tournament for someone who plays worm guard is to do a lot of specific training. So I think find a partner is the big one. Really invest in video study and learning online. That's one of your biggest tools. Because if you're not on the mat with the best guys in the world, you might as well, you better be watching what they're doing so you see what they're doing. And then using a lot of specific training to put yourself in positions that you would not normally otherwise be in. Okay. But honestly, the biggest thing is putting that groundwork and finding a partner that you can work with like that. A lot of people don't do that. They go, oh, there's no one. You need to like go through everyone in class, message people, even people you don't know that well, start talking to them, see, find the guys who stay. You put that effort into finding that person. That is the key. If you don't have someone you can work with on the side, it's going to be very hard to do all that extra smart work you need. All right, guys. I'm gonna do one more question and then we're gonna call it a night here because it's getting kind of late and I think we've been at it like an hour here. It was a great turnout, guys. I really appreciate you guys all joining in. What do you do from what do you do if people go very low when you play daily if you still have the hook? Um, I like to go underhook De La Hiva there. So like if I have the hook in, if I have the hook in and they squat low and the hook is still in, that's where underhook De La Hiva is really strong. Um, so I'll show you here real quick. Real webcam. Okay. So
if we're here and I have the only him and he squat really low, right, and the hook is in like this, man, this is the best for De La Hiva, right? Because when he's this low, I can get a super good De La Hiva hook, right? If I have the De La Hiva hook, underhooking here like this can be really strong, right? Now I can really off balance and backwards here. I can start to go up here. I can invert through for a really good bear and bolo here. So I love that one. All right. If we're here, right, and let's say the hook is out somehow, I don't know, like this, right, and we're here like this, then I have this collar and knee shield. I'll try to off balance him a lot and move him around until I can set the hook. If he's like Mikey squatted and I can't really get anything going, then I might try to switch up to the sleeve and then start trying to attack with like sleeve controls and get on the hip here and then start trying to attack with this kind of stuff, you know? So I would kind of need to see the video or picture of exactly the position you're in. But if you can get that underhook deal, he'll even start playing with his balance when he's low, that's super strong.
No problem. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Make sure I'm on the webcam. Yeah, I am. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining in. Be sure to click the bell button so you guys get notifications for the next time I do one. Like I said, it's always random when I do it, when I have a partner and stuff, so it's hard to really schedule. So be sure to join in the next one. I appreciate it, and thanks again.